Mr. Grubble, remove your hat in my courtroom.
I do not recognize the authority of a court that hangs the gold-fringed flag. A flag with gilded edges is the flag of an admiralty court. An admiralty court signifies a naval court-martial. I cannot be court-martialed twice. That is all. Furthermore...
Bailiff, gag him.
Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello, Occultists. I am Richard Bigley, and in studio with me I have...
Dave Briggs for Occultae Veritatis podcast.
Leon Filger for Occultae Veritatis podcast.
Ood, I'm here. I don't know what this is.
I'm the Soundboard Demon, and I actually own the Occultae Veritatis podcast.
Oh, fuck.
I'm Loki. I'm just a guest on this show.
But what show is it? I don't think we know.
Occultae Veritatis.
Thank you.
I heard it stands for Hidden Truth.
It actually stands for Joe Rogan Experience.
Stands for Joe Rogan's Monkey.
It's an inside joke.
Like, I don't even want to be in here that much longer. Just do what you got to do so I can get up out of here. I'm tired of being in the courtroom that has no integrity whatsoever. How can you even call yourself
Mr.
a judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of some
I need to make a record, too.
You don't.
When am I going to get the chance to do that?
All right. I need to make a record. He's being removed to the other courtroom. He is yelling at me. He's not going to let me make a statement or make the record that I need to make. He hasn't sat down for the better part of 2 hours.
All you want. You can hold me in contempt all you want.
I'm not holding you in contempt.
If it's criminal or civil, so I can hit you with you.
I need to clear the courtroom because I do need to make.
I'm gonna give you what you know is coming.
I need him to go to the other courtroom because I do need.
The Darrell Brooks trial. The story of a man who drove his SUV into a crowd of people at a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. His actions injured 62 people and killed another 6, including 8-year-old Jackson Sparks. At his trial, Brooks used many tactics to delay and disrupt proceedings, to the point that the judge remarked, "It makes me scared."
I was strongly unemployed when this when this trial was happening, so I watched some of these court days live. It was amazing watching this judge like balance the line between like handling this adult child and doing what's legally necessary to make the trial go forward.
All right, I'm having the jury brought out. I'm instructing you to avoid the commentary when the jury comes out, or you will forfeit your right to be present.
Before we do that, there's an issue that we do need to pick up potential as to a witness by the name of Abel Lescano. He has prior criminal history.
Thank you.
So as long as the jury's out, we should probably discuss that. I would like to provide the defendant and the court with a copy.
So that had to be said. So it's the defendant.
That's not how it was said.
That was how it said. You want to run the record back?
Mr. Brooks.
So I'm the only one. I got one
Brooks.
one ear that work, and I heard that.
This is to benefit you so that you
not.
understand
Ain't none
your
of this to benefit me, so let's
has
be clear
a prior
about that.
record.
Your Honor, when I leave the table, I'm away from the courtroom, and I have to elevate my voice. This is the alleged record of Abel Lescano.
Stop talking.
Come on, man. Like, I don't know who y'all be thinking y'all fooling. I accept the value in return for value this document.
One more interruption, and you're going to be removed to the next courtroom.
That's what you want to do anyway.
It's not what I want to do. Do not interrupt Attorney Opper.
So can
Your Honor, I believe he has 7 prior criminal convictions via OWI 2nd from 1997, and OWI 3rd from 1997, and OWI 4th from 2003, criminal trespass to dwelling from 2006.
Right, I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared. And we're taking a break.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now, this episode isn't about Brooks or his trial. It's about something that was missed in the Cult Ears Only episode. This episode is about a pseudo-legal movement that Brooks took a page from. There is a growing group of people who feel that the laws, as commonly interpreted, don't apply to them, and accordingly will act as such. These are the sovereign citizens. Now, initially, I was reluctant to call Brooks a full-on sovereign citizen, but the more the trial I watched, I'm pretty much full aligned that he is a sovereign citizen.
With you, Mr. Brooks, and ask you, is it your desire to represent yourself in this case?
It is. I would like to proceed in this matter prior persona, not pro se.
Say that last part again.
I would like to proceed in this matter in pro per, not pro se.
So you're going to have to tell me what you think that means.
It is me exercising my right to defend myself, to represent myself as a sovereign citizen. So essentially, this matter today would be me appearing by special appearance.
You have an absolute right to have an attorney represent you. It is protected not only by the Wisconsin Constitution, but the United States Constitution. Do you understand that?
I do understand my rights under the United States Constitution, yes.
Did you hear what I said?
Repeat it.
Do you understand that you have the right to have an attorney represent you, what we call the right to counsel?
Under the Sixth Amendment, correct?
Under the Sixth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the Wisconsin Constitution as well.
Is this a common law court or an admiralty court? I want to first state again for the record that I do not identify by that name, nor do I consent to being called that name.
Well, before we go into this episode, I think it's time for some poison.
Yeah. I've been done poisoned.
So, what's your poison?
So today we have Pabst Blue Ribbon.
PBR?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever drank this, so this will be my first time. Like a Pabst version.
The choice beer of all sovereign citizens. If you think that your state doesn't exist because it's somehow a ship, it's for you. I love that judge's accent. We are here in Wisconsin. It's like, yeah, we know that. We figured that out for 3 seconds you talked.
Don't you know?
Now, this is hipster brew once removed because, like, I don't think Canadian hipsters are huge about Pabst, but, like, American hipsters are more of that.
I lived in Vancouver, and we went to this, like, grubby, like, metal hardcore bar.
Yeah.
It was all PBR.
Interesting.
Because it's cheap and shitty.
Tastes like water.
I like my beers that taste like water.
Yeah, there's a faint kind of beer flavor to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
There's nothing wrong with the PBR. There's hipsters, is a different story. But
My favorite beers barely taste like beers, so this is great. Yeah, like my Dosaki's, another beer that's barely a beer.
My favorite beer is Guinness Stout.
Mm. Oh, you like your beer and beer. You like your beer and milkshakes in there.
Yes.
A liquefied peat bog.
Yeah.
Beer shake.
I don't like beer I have to chew through. Guinness I can enjoy, but not all the time because it's a slog.
Back in my drinking days, my favorite beer was Steam Whistle Pilsner.
Oh, Steam Whistle's nice and clean. Yeah, that's a crisp little beer.
It seems like, there's nothing to object about Nothing to object
No.
to. It's just, it is.
All right. Well, if everyone's finished.
Your Honor, I'm merely seeking to understand on
Mr. Brooks, I refer you once again to document 244 that you signed, that you acknowledged, dealing with the right to waiver of right to attorney. We went through all of the advantages, the disadvantages. You were advised of things, including the charges that you face, the penalties that go along with them. We discussed the difficulty of representing yourself. You made a deliberate choice to waive your right to an attorney, which this court honored and granted. And you, Mr. Brooks, don't interrupt me. Okay, now that's at least the second time. So don't interrupt me. I'm going to continue with these proceedings. Even though you're mild-mannered, even though you're speaking in a soft tone of voice, the conduct still has the same effect. And that's to disrupt, to delay, and to show disrespect for the court proceedings.
It is not. It is not my
Mr.
intent.
Brooks,
It is not
please.
my intent.
I'm not going to force you to sit down. You're welcome to sit down, but I am instructing the jury to come out. You, at your peril, run the risk of me admonishing you in front of them at this point. I don't want to do that, sir.
I'm seeking to merely understand.
Sir, I cannot give you legal advice. I cannot give you the understanding that you want.
I'm not
all right?
asking for legal advice.
I cannot explain court procedures or the law to you. So with that, Mr. Brooks, that's another interruption. You keep going. Stop.
I'm seeking merely to understand, Your Honor. I don't understand the nature and cause of the charges.
Mr. Brooks, I've already dealt with these.
I'm trying to bring up the subject matter
Mr. Brooks,
jurisdiction.
if you keep interrupting me, then you will forfeit your right to be present because you're showing through your conduct that you will not follow the most simplest rule of civility in a courtroom, and that's by not interrupting. You continue to interrupt. It's been a couple of minutes since we've been on the record, and there's been a number of times you've already interrupted me. You claiming to not understand and you wanting to discuss subject matter jurisdiction, do not, it's just a tactic by you. The fact that you are doing that demonstrates to me that you came back over here, right, with absolutely no intention of following the rules.
If that's what you want to say, that's your assessment. It's not accurate.
Well, my assessment will stand on the record, sir. It's based on my observations.
And
So at this point, Mr. Brooks,
I respectfully object
stop
to that.
interrupting me, please.
I merely
Stop
just seek
interrupting
to
me,
understand.
sir.
I'm not. I was
If
in
you
the middle
have
of
an
saying
objection,
something.
write it down.
I thought that applied to me being.
It's
from
applying right
another-
now since you keep interrupting me while I'm talking.
So what is the purpose of me being present if I'm not able to ask simple questions that I do not understand? I'm
Mr.
just
Brooks,
seeking.
I've been
I'm not
more
asking for
than
legal
patient
advice.
with you. And the issues that you keep trying to raise every time we're in here are not issues I'm going to raise at this juncture or address at this juncture in the proceedings.
Is there
All right,
a reason
I'm
why?
not giving you advice. I'm not explaining the law. I don't need to do any of that, sir. All right, you filed what you needed to file. I've addressed every single filing on the record. It may not be to your satisfaction, but I have addressed them.
So, sovereign citizens are a pseudo-legal movement because, well, like anything else that you preface with the word pseudo, like, for example, pseudoscience, it's not actually whatever it purports to be. So, pseudo-legal is not actually law, despite them pretending that it is.
They practice law in the same way that people who watch Scrubs and other medical dramas practice medicine. Like, they get, like, a false, like, stunted idea of what it actually is.
Exactly. And legal scholars, Donald Nitlowski, actually defines pseudo-law as a collection of legal sounding but false rules that purport to be law. And that's a good definition because it also it doesn't cover or it doesn't consider things like novel arguments or an ignorance of precedent in case law as pseudo-law. So like if you wanted to make like a novel argument, something that's never been made before, that's not necessarily pseudo law, whereas that definition is good because it excludes that sort of thing. And on the topic of pseudo law, in Crane versus Commissioner of Internal Revenue, the judge called it a hodgepodge of legalistic gibberish.
Yeah. Like it sounds good on its face, but if you dive into any of the details, it's just all false or misconceptions or just made up.
It's kind of like when you get ChatGPT to try to write you an episode on something and it really doesn't say anything of any sort of meaning or relevance. So what is the sovereign citizen movement? People who hold a collection of assorted beliefs. Some may or may not be rooted in white supremacy, anti-Semitism, etc., but it is generally a right-wing sort of thing. So you'll see a lot of that in this episode, though this episode's not specifically about those things. It's just an ongoing theme throughout the history of the movement. So first, let's kind of get back to the beginning of the movement, where this all kind of started. Posse Comitatus. I was going to make a joke about insane clown posse comitatus, but I felt that was kind of some low-hanging comedy fruit there, so I'm not going to make the joke. But if anyone else feels like they want to make an insane clown posse joke, go right ahead with it. So posse comitatus is Latin for power to the county, community, or guard. It's a legal principle originally referring to a group of citizens assembled by the authorities to deal with an emergency. So, like you got a murderer at large in your mid-1600s English village. A bunch of common folks get together at the request of the sheriff or the king or whoever, and they go out and they try to track him down.
So like a posse?
A posse, exactly.
Are these the hordes of pitchfork and torch carriers that are chasing Frankenstein's monster?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you form a posse. So now I'm not going to really get into the history around that or the issues surrounding it, but I do feel it's kind of a little bit of relevant background about the term before I move on to my next topic, William Potter Gale.
It also kind of frames what they might think of themselves as like warriors against, the darkness and all that.
Yeah, Proud Boys will be falling underneath that too, because they'll be like, oh yeah, we're protecting.
Oh yeah, they might consider themselves sovereign citizens to a point.
Exactly.
Yeah, basically the Posse Comitatus Act just stopped the U.S. Army from being able to be the law-keeping force and made some other group as your law force. Most places said, let's do police.
So let's talk a little bit about William Potter Gale now. So a Mother Jones article written by Sarah Rathod describes his activity in 1971. William Potter Gale, a white supremacist and anti-Semitic activist, forms a proto-patriot group called Posse Comitatus, which reports that the highest level of authority is the county government. Gale says sheriffs who violate the Constitution should be taken to a populated intersection and hung there by the neck. Wow. The group spreads across the West and Midwest by the 1980s. So William, being born of a father who renounced his Judaism, is descendant of a Jewish person himself, carries anti-Semitic views.
So he's formed a lynching gang, basically?
Well, sort of. It's sort of like one of those Christian patriot type organizations, but like in the 1970s. So what happens is William Gale writes the Guide for Volunteer Christian Posses, and in it says that to deal with government officials who disobey the Constitution is to basically hang them. It's essentially a manifesto for lynching and mob rule.
That's fucked.
Now, I think of like the Ottawa convoy folks, and all their references, and like the Canadian Yellow Vesters before the Ottawa Convoy,
I remember that.
where they're all just like Canadian wannabe militia types, and all these other right-wing groups that we have in the country. They're like Trudeau for treason, and it's always coupled with imagery of the gallows or a noose or something. All that kind of imagery and language kind of originates out of William Gale's book on posses.
Kind of the us versus the state mentality passed on to that.
Exactly. So, in the 1970s, William Potter Gale falsely stated that the 14th Amendment converted sovereign citizens into federal citizens by their agreement to a contract to accept benefits from the federal government.
Oh. So they believe themselves to be federal, like, entities now?
Well, he takes sovereign people and now they become citizens to the federal government. And he says that's what the 14th Amendment does. I mean, he's completely wrong. It's complete bullshit and nonsense. But that's what he says to his people as he forms his own organization called the Posse Comitatus.
No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction to the equal protection of the laws. That's 14th Amendment, in short.
So what is Posse Comitatus, I guess, in the context of William Gale? It's a loosely organized American far-right populist social movement. Its members spread a conspiracy-minded, anti-government, anti-Semitic message linked to white supremacy, aiming to counter what they believe is an attack on their social and political rights as white Christians. It starts getting into some of that white genocide nonsense,
Yeah, like we're being slowly replaced. Like every time there's an interracial couple that has an interracial child, that's whiteness being erased. Like that kind of bullshit?
Exactly. And so these Posse Comitatus groups that were springing up were also straight up blaming Jewish people for everything that was wrong with the world. As the farm crisis in the 1980s progressed, a lot of these posse movements saw a lot of growth and expansion. The Center for Democratic Renewal had actually written a report on the anti-Semitic activities of these posses in 1985. Rest of that page.
Far-right racist, anti-Semitic organizations, individuals are cruelly engaged in the campaign across the mutual redress. They are using a variety of organizational techniques to gain coverts to their cause. They are actively spreading to an ever wide strata of rural population and has become increasingly more sophisticated in the last several years. In this campaign, there has tried to bring its message of hate and scapegoating from the extremist edges of society into the mainstream of political and social life. In many instances, they have attempted to address their anti-democratic message across the close of concern of family style and agriculture. Unfortunately, there is evidence this campaign has some success. The report goes on to state the Ostrich periodical associates itself within the tax protest movement and the campaign for honest or constitutional money. That's kind of weird, constitutional money. The issue devoted to the farm crisis also carried a large page ad and for understanding text of the Posse Comitatus Anderson on sheriffs. It's typical of literature that links the farm crisis to the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. The Ostrich also advertises its own pocket materials. Stop foreclosures for only $45. In the same issue, they plugged Cornet LeBleu, those Patriots Information Network. Newsletters regularly carry information about the legal karate kits to stop the farm foreclosures.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so basically there's always a grift. These groups were forming, they were coming up with their own literature, and if you wanted more literature, if the government or the banks were coming for your farm, we can sell you for $45 this legal karate kit that you can use to prevent this from happening to you. You just got to send $45 to me and my publication and so on and so forth. It's basically a grift, it didn't help anyone.
It sounds very familiar to the stuff that's happening now.
Exactly.
It also sounds like something you'd find at like the back page of a comic book.
Yeah, it kind of is, but I mean, someone must have sent them $45 thinking that this was going to help them, keep their farm.
So there's an economic crisis. They exploit it to sell these karate books of legal techniques. Is that where they get all these routines of, well, I'm driving but without a license, but I'm not technically driving. I'm traveling, and I can travel unabated. Is that where they get that kind of shit?
Yeah, it's just like made up nonsense. This stuff I think would be more in line with stuff relating to farm foreclosures and stuff that. But it's not helpful. Like when you contrast how the left wing would have responded or had responded during the farm crisis, leftist organizers would preach messages of solidarity and anti-racism, and provide actual legal aid and brought actual legal victories to some of these farmers. Basically, the organization and the actions of these left organizers saved many folks from falling into the clutches of this right-wing anti-Semitic conspiracy theory and rhetoric. It really kind of hindered the growth of the Posse Comitatus. It's like, well, why would I send you $45 for your legal bullshit when there's a community organizer over here who's providing real legal aid and save the old Johnson farm down the road there?
Yeah, as if the karate is going to stop the government. They're just going to shoot you. They're not going to wait.
So basically, to take away from this, it's a good organized message. If you want to put down far-right groups, you've got to out-organize them, show people that there is value in solidarity and that it does get results. So throughout the 1980s, these Posse Comitatus groups basically went into decline and started to fade away. Some of their leaders died. Some of their leaders and members ended up in prison, made the group look bad when your people are going to jail. Farm crisis started to let up. Left-wing organizing provided relief for many who would have otherwise been targeted by these groups. So as the posse faded, gave rise to modern-day patriot movements such as the Three Percenters, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, etc. Somewhat intertwined in these, you also have the Sovereign Citizens, who continued to develop on the false legal theories that were advanced by Gale and others in these Posse Comitatus movements. So that's sort of how a brief history of how we got here. That said, there's a lot that we put on this topic. William Gale could have been an episode, and the posse could have been an episode, and each of the posse leaders could be an episode. There's a lot to talk about on that topic, but I'm just going to say that's what happened, and we'll move on. So, sovereign citizens. One of the beliefs of the sovereign citizens is that the U.S. transformed into a corporation in 1871.
Your body is considered a maritime admiralty product. Your mother delivered you. This is why if you go to Sears and buy a refrigerator, they will ship it to you. They will deliver it. And that's why you were in your delivery room. Your mother was delivering a product. Maritime admiralty. You came down your mother's birth canal. And once you, and as you're taking one of the televisions or the cars off the ship and it falls down and breaks, that's all right. Sometimes they're stillborn, so consequently you've lost money on that one. Therefore, you have to have a death certificate, and it's always signed by the doc. The doc has to sign your birth certificate and your death certificate. All of these words and terms are maritime admiralty banking words. In 1868, there was a corporation founded. Anyone can incorporate a company. Well, in 1868, there was a company incorporated. And in that particular company, the founders of that company they referred to it as the United States Corporation. And they stipulated that anybody who would be a member of that corporation or work for that corporation would be called not an employee, but a citizen. Think about this. When cowboys in Indian movies, when the cowboys would ride into town, they'd get off the horse, they were wearing guns. How come they could walk into a bar carrying guns? And if two guys got in an argument, they could go out on the street and draw on each other in front of the sheriff's office, and the sheriff would do nothing. How come? How come that men could go out in the street and shoot each other in front of everyone and nothing be done about it? The reason why is because before 1868, all Americans were considered sovereigns.
Now, this originates in the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871, where they claim that it turned the U.S. into the U.S. federal government into an incorporated private business venture. It's also linked to the 14th Amendment, and to support this belief, many will refer to 28 U.S. Code 3002, which says the United States means a federal corporation. Of course, with much of this stuff, you have unskilled people interpreting matters outside of their actual intended context. So corporation doesn't necessarily mean a business, but that's how they're interpreting it.
Yeah, it's just one of the definitions of corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, since they see the U.S. as a private corporation, they feel that it is illegitimate and not an actual government. Some will say that the corporation has gone bankrupt and is secretly using citizens as collateral against foreign debt. So citizens are basically sold off to foreign interests as soon as they're born, and how the government does that is they issue a birth certificate.
Oh, that's a receipt?
Yeah, it's like kind of like a receipt to some foreign.
Why does this sound like one of the parts of the apocalypse to Christian philosophy, where you mark up the beast?
Yeah, it's a bit of a apocalyptic, like rapture kind of stuff, like being sold by foreign powers, by an evil entity and all that.
Where they're going to make slaves of us all through a system of pledging, where we pledge our children as surety through something called a birth certificate and a satanic ritual that takes place. And everything is admiralty. We all live under the water. And what is law, and where does law come from? Where does the word law come from? Land, air, and water. The law of the air is the highest. That's where your oath of office comes in. That's where your will is expressed. That's canon law. It's ecclesiastical law. It's for the benefit of another. And then you move down to the law of the land. The law of the land is common law, where in order for there to be a crime, there must be a victim, or there must be harm that has happened. It is your real, true title. It is lawful money. It's your private property. And then you move down to the lowest and the oldest form of the law, where the person, the personification resides, and that is the law of the water. It's admiralty law. It's contract law. It's where code, statutes, and ordinances, like the motor vehicle code, the tax code, and ordinances and statutes reside. The Supreme Court has said that codes and statutes are not law. So why would a government incorporate itself, and why would it need to give you a birth certificate? Everything is admiralty. We only live in the construct of the water. All law enforcement is an administrative process enforcing corporation bylaws called codes and statutes. So how do they get you to pledge your child, and how did our parents and our grandparents pledge us as property, as surety in our personification, all capital names? It was through an evil satanic ritual called the birth of a child. You see, a mother goes into a foundling center, and she goes to see the dock tour. A tour is a bill of lading when a ship arrives at the dock. And the mother's water breaks, And the child comes out of the water through the birth canal, like you birth a ship, into the air, into the hands of the doctor. And then, historically speaking, a satanic ritual would take place. The child was smacked on the butt, turned upside down, cried out in fear and pain. And then before the child could put their feet on the land and take the breath of God as a free creation of God, a legal bond document came out. It's on bond paper because it's a banking instrument. It's a surety bond. And the child's soul was taken on the back of that document. It was called the soul print. And then the umbilical cord and the afterbirth was thereby dead and abandoned by the mother. And because that was part of your birth, part of you being born, the construct, the evil, says that now that is dead. A part of you died, and now you're a dead vessel. You're an all-capital legal fiction called your person. If you look at your driver's license, if you look at every document that government or any business sends you, it's in your all-capital name. So that's how the government interacts with you, because under contract law, one of the rules of contract, and this is ancient, is that a contract must be of like kind. So that means in order for government that incorporated itself to interact with you, it must be in your all-capital name, they call it a vessel. You're the surety for that vessel. You're the transmitting utility for that vessel. You as the living man and living woman. And they use this construct to contract with you through presentments. Call it like a traffic ticket or a bill or a code violation, or to tax you as a citizen, a city-zen, city, municipal, zen, servant. We are living in Babylon right now. It's a corporate construct. It's a matrix. Ken L. Reeves has said publicly that the matrix is a documentary of how we're living our lives. Your money's not real. You don't own anything. That they took away our money. They took away our gold. They gave it to the central banks, and what they didn't give to the central banks, they sold it back to England. Because all of our property and everything we own or ever will own will be held as a mortgage or surety against the Federal Reserve notes, even our children.
Well, it's interesting too, because it also ties into how they perceive American citizenship. So the 14th Amendment was passed largely in response to the southern U.S. Producing what is called black codes. Basically, it was an attempt of these states to restrict movement and democratic participation of the recently freed slaves. So the 14th Amendment was basically to say, no, they're citizens and everyone has the same rights. However, sovereign citizens see the citizenship under this amendment as fake. So and it's kind of like, well, they see it as fake, but it's like, who gained citizenship under this amendment? Well, it was, black slaves. So, they say, well, if that's what makes you a citizen, well, that's fake. And so, yeah, it kind of shows that white supremacist origin of this movement, because like I said, a lot of this kind of focuses around the 14th Amendment and the citizenship gained by it. I've got an excerpt here from the George Washington University program on extremism.
The George Washington University program on extremism explains. While most sovereigns have erroneous beliefs about the Founding Fathers and the early history of the United States, the most useful starting point for understanding the movement's alternative history is the adoption of the 14th Amendment in 1868. The 14th Amendment, which guaranteed citizenship to slaves freed after the Civil War, states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Most sovereign citizens believe this amendment created a form of second-class citizenship, less empowered and more subject to the federal government, which is seen as distinct from the state-centered form of citizenship articulated in this Constitution. 14th Amendment citizens are seen by sovereigns as inferior, limited, or in more extreme views, as slaves. However, sovereigns believe they can opt out of the 14th Amendment citizenship by understanding certain legal provisions and reclaiming their constitutional citizenship. The 14th Amendment also stipulates that the validity of public debt of the U.S. government cannot be questioned. In the eyes of some sovereigns, this provision opened the door to a financial conspiracy, starting with the implementation of a commercial legal system.
Just legal dipshittery.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
very
just
much dipshittery.
nonsense. So when they mention the commercial legal system, sovereign citizens may also refer to it as admiralty law, which was kind of mentioned in the clip from Brooks at the on the onset of the episode here. They feel you lose protection of the Bill of Rights as a result of the 14th Amendment whenever you engage with the government, such as claiming any sort of benefits, getting a driver's license, or even accepting mail with a zip code on it, because that makes you a federal citizen.
And some of them treat like if you sign a paper with your capitalized legal name on it, or if you pay a bill that has a certain like way of spelling your name on it, that's them like succumbing to the government and accepting their government identity. And some of them like resist doing any paperwork with the government or working with the government anyway because they think some right's going to be stolen from them as soon as they do.
But don't you worry. You can get your Bill of Rights protections back. All you have to do is renounce your federal citizenship and destroy anything you have from a government authority, such as burning your driver's license, tearing up your birth certificates, and then you can just file some made-up documents with the local courthouse.
Did they rip up the roads?
Oh, no, I'm sure they want to drive on the roads. That's fine.
Travel.
Travel on the roads, yes.
That sounds like the I declare bankruptcy episode of The Office.
Well, like, sovereign citizens remind me of, like, wizards in a world where magic doesn't exist. Because they cast these legal word spells and it doesn't work, and they just stand there like it worked anyhow. Like, I don't get it.
So one of what this will mean is also representing yourself in court as a result of this sort of thinking, because they would be under the impression that the use of a lawyer, particularly if there was one provided by the state, that would be contracting with the state. So in the clip's beginning of the episode, Darrell Brooks is asking to represent himself and not use the lawyers provided to him. Now, while I'm not aware of Brooks's reasons for choosing to represent himself, I would speculate that this could have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, and just like Ud was saying, the legal magical mumbo jumbo, he specifically made a point about I want to be here pro persona, not pro se, which is literally just saying the same thing, but with different words. And pro per, not pro se, because magic.
It is me exercising my right to defend myself, to represent myself as a sovereign citizen.
You have an absolute right to have an attorney represent you. It is protected not only by the Wisconsin Constitution, but the United States Constitution. Do you understand that?
Under the 6th Amendment, correct?
Under the 6th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the Wisconsin Constitution as well. It's a well-established right that a criminal defendant has. Do you understand that?
I'm aware, yes.
Do you understand, sir, that you can't have an attorney and exercise that right and also exercise the right of self-representation?
No, I don't understand that.
So you started off this hearing by saying you want to exercise this right to appear in persona today and act as a sovereign citizen. Do you wish to represent yourself in this case?
Yes, I do. To represent myself as a sovereign citizen.
I'm not going to make a determination, sir, whether you're a sovereign citizen or not. It's not relevant to my determination how you characterize who you are, other than you are accused of 77 counts, which I will go through momentarily, and you have the right to have an attorney represent you. That's your constitutional right. You have two very capable attorneys that have been with you from the beginning. You understand that, right?
I credit them with that. I'm appreciative of that. But it also should be said that there's a lot of things that I did not understand about the proceedings in a lot of the court cases. There were things that I didn't understand why there wasn't certain motions filed. There were a lot of things that I did not understand the totality of the meaning behind. And that is what kind of led to a lot of issues. But these were issues that were being raised for a number of months. This was not just something that sprung up out of the blue. And I feel that as my attorneys, that it would be essentially their job to make me aware of things that I do not understand. So that's where a lot of the questions come into question as you.
So let me follow that up, sir. If I allow them to withdraw, you lose their legal experience, their specialized training, right? Their education, their work as attorneys. Do you understand that?
No, I did not understand.
So if you are allowed to represent yourself in this case, sir, you will not have attorneys assisting you. If I let them withdraw, they're gone from this case. Do you understand that?
I think I will probably be better served representing myself.
Okay, so for a sovereign citizen, would they have to still use the same law books, right? So it would still be underneath the government.
They just get to
Oh yeah, it's all made up nonsense.
They just get to ignore whatever laws they want to ignore, and then only take laws from before. It'd be like me going like, I don't have to pay your income tax. That's not in the Magna Carta.
But like that's what confuses me about them is like they do all this legal mumbo jumbo and try all their tricks. It doesn't work. They still get arrested. They still go to jail. They still go to trial. They still get punished. So like their little legal tricks didn't work, but they still walk forward as confidently as ever. I don't get it.
So common law in real life is basically a body of law which relies on precedents. So a judge makes a decision on a case and this will become law. And then future cases, the parties will have to argue whether this case is just like the prior one or why the prior case doesn't actually apply to that. And so you basically use past court decisions to form your legal arguments. For example, in 1773 case of Scott versus Shepherd, Shepherd throws an explosive into a crowd of people. Several merchants throw it around amongst each other until it eventually exploded, putting out Scott's eye. Now, although Shepherd did not throw the explosive at Scott, he was nevertheless held liable to Scott because everyone who had handled the explosive prior to it exploding was there acting in the interests of their own safety. And so basically because of that, that sets a legal precedent. And now 200 years after that happened, we still cite Scott versus Shepherd in case law.
Yeah, if I throw a grenade into a crowd and a couple people bop it around to try and get it away from themselves, I'm still liable. Like I'm still
exactly. And so that case gets referred to even 2 centuries after it was ruled on, showing the importance and how precedent works in common law. However, sovereign citizen have a different meaning when they mention common law. They may also refer to it as God's law. This is their interpretation of the U.S. legal system as it existed before it switched over to that admiralty law that they speak of. Now, this interpretation is not grounded in reality or fact or jurisprudence. In fact, there's not even a unified explanation as to when this change in legal systems took place. Some sovereign citizens will say in 1871. Others will say in 1933 when the U.S. gave up on the gold standard, yet other people will say it took place in 1789 when the first post office was established. So there's no consistency among sovereign citizens about what the law or when the law took charge, much less, it's just, there's just no consistency here.
You think an entire legal system being switched out would be noticed by the eyes of history?
Yeah, but they don't even know when this alleged change happened.
But they need it to have happened to make their mythology work.
That's right, yes.
Hmm.
But they don't know when it happened. It just that it happened, and they can all sort of agree on that. So common law, as understood by sovereign citizens, means you don't have to pay child support or taxes, or that you don't need car insurance, or would be applicable to any traffic tickets. Now, I try to avoid giving legal advice on this show, but I would confidently say that this is not how it works, and therefore you should not try this. Of course, if you do try it, email us at feedback@ovpod.ca because we would be really curious to know how it turns out.
Send us a video clip. We'll put it on the
Yeah, send us a video clip or something. We could put it on YouTube. It would be great. But it's basically like they've built this fake legal system that they want to be real. And then they've built loopholes around the fake legal system that they invented in their heads. So you made up fake law, and then you make up fake loopholes to get around the fake law that you just made up.
Yeah. like they get around, they believe they can drive without a driver's license because they think that, the government entity that happens to have my name is required to have a government ID and a driver's license, but me, the person of the earth, the entity that operates under common law, doesn't have any such requirement. The only thing that I'm stipulated to is that I have the freedom to travel, and since I operate under common law, I can travel via car even without a driver's license because I'm not the government entity, I'm just me.
Yeah. In the clips of Darrell Brooks at the beginning, he said that he does not identify by that name and does not consent to being called that name. This is another theme that you'll find in sovereign citizen lore. It's called the straw man self. Basically, it is a fictional corporate self that the government uses. So when they refer to this corporate version of yourself, they address you in capital letters. So that's why when you get letters from the government, your name is in all caps, because it's not because that's how they do it and how it's entered into a database somewhere. It's because they're referring to you, the corporate self.
Strawman self is the worst gender.
Yeah. There's also, in sovereign citizen lore, then the flesh and blood person, the you, the physical you, the one that walks the earth. Well, your legal obligations only apply to this government-created straw man named the same as you.
I am the living man, salt of the earth, born of the sand.
I'm the salt of the earth, and I'm better than you. You know it.
Oh, yeah.
Now this kind of comes out of what I would consider to be a misunderstanding between the definitions of person, judicial person, and natural person. So it's just one of those things, and it just doesn't make any sense because they don't understand what they're talking about. And it's kind of like you then ask yourself, well, why would the U.S. government create this strongman person? And the rationale behind it is that they're using these corporate entity people as collateral against the foreign debt.
My name?
Yes, your name.
My name is Carlos Lorenzo, and I'm here to represent the person you got on that paper, which is an all capital name, all capital letters. That's a corporation, and I'm not claiming to be him, but I'm here to represent him. All capital name is all corporation. I'm not a corporation. I'm not dead. I'm not a fictitious entity. So I'm not claiming to be whoever name you have on that paper, which is probably in all capital letters. That's not my name. It's two names in this court that sound exactly alike, and only one of them is mine. What name is on that paper y'all have over there? Is it in all capital letters? That's not my name. but it's my property. It's my trademark trade name, and I own it. And I need to know if anybody has permission to use it from me. So do we have that understood? I am not a U.S. citizen, and I'm not a citizen of the United States. I am not that person on that paper, because that person is a fictitious entity. I am actually flesh and blood. I am a man standing on the land, and that's what I got you. Do you understand that? I'm not him. I'm claiming not to be him.
I just wanted to know who you were. Thank you. I had to check there. Attorney Simon, thank you. Appreciate it. You want to speak to your client in private before we go on the record? Because he's still talking.
I just told you that it's two names that sound exactly alike and only one of them is mine. My name has never been spelled in all capital letters, so that is not my name. Whatever name you have on that paper is a corporation and it does not exist. That's not who I am. I'm not.
What is your name?
I'm here to represent him.
What is your name?
My name is Carlos. That's what I go by.
State your name, please.
Objection. My name is not Mr., and I never spelled it in all capital letters. I keep explaining that to y'all, but y'all insist I'm that dead entity on that piece of paper, and I'm not.
So basically, what that means at the end of the day is you don't have to do what you don't want to do, and you can do anything you want if you want to do it, because the law only actually applies to your straw man. And if you don't consent to your straw man's legal obligations, then whatever, man.
It's like your avatar.
Yeah, like an avatar. It's just persona, whatever. And so, it kind of reminded me of that episode in Parks and Rec when Ron hands the law enforcement the paper saying that he's got a permit.
Okay, let's begin the barbecue.
Oh, hey, little guy, what are you doing? Oh, no.
Everyone, meet your meat.
No. Why are you doing this to us?
Well, in my opinion, not enough people have looked their dinner in the eyes and considered the circle of life. This is your dinner. His name is Tom.
Burn! Seriously?
No, I understand that it's hilarious, but that is his given Christian name. Tom is very smart and incredibly loyal. He's basically a dog. A dog we're going to cook, chew, and swallow.
Dude, there's kids around here.
Good point. Which one of you youngsters wants to help me drain the blood from this animal? If you do a good job, I'll give you the bladder. You can blow it up for a fun play ball.
Hey, Ron, you're not gonna slaughter that pig here, are you?
Not to worry. I have a permit.
This just says I can do what I want.
It's so obvious that like they can just paint whatever freedoms they want in, because like an actual legal system has to like be cohesive. It has to be able to work with each other. It has to be a working system. But like the sovereign citizen mythology version of a legal system, it doesn't have to be coherent. It doesn't have to match. They just focus on whatever areas they want to go into, whether it be like making black people slaves again, according to them, or like they don't have to pay rent, or they don't need a driver's license. They just focus on whatever areas they want and like come up with the post hoc justification with legal mumbo jumbo to do whatever the fuck they want.
Well, exactly. And a lot of it has to do with like, for example, tax protest movements. I don't like paying taxes, but as a person, I kind of understand that there's programs that needed to be funded from these taxes.
I feel like there's an intersection between these types of folks and there was a guy dressed as a girl in the kids' bathroom type crowd.
Oh,
where
100%.
they just like make up crises and then come up with their own fucked up solution to these non-crises in order to impact policy and try to get Mark Friesen on board.
Yeah. So it's interesting because like a lot of times scammers will try to sell this idea of the straw man to people, and actually it was so bad that the IRS had actually issued a bulletin in April of 2005 stating, quote, that a taxpayer cannot avoid income tax on the erroneous theory that the government has created a separate and distinct entity, or straw man, in place of the taxpayer, and that the taxpayer is not responsible for the tax obligations of the straw man. This argument has no merit and is frivolous, end quote. So in 2005, the IRS is like, watch out for these fucking people.
Can you imagine the poor IRS employee that had to write that out and be like, for fuck's sake, guys.
Man, I can almost see how they get there, because like they would come across, I imagine some legal body somewhere like try to define what a person was and what like a legal person was, and a sovereign citizen or one of their ancestors came across it, read it, misunderstood it, and be like, there's two distinct people, there's a government people and there's a real free blood people and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, I'm not one to dispense legal advice on a podcast, but you probably shouldn't try that.
Don't.
Another belief is the UCC 1308, which is the Uniform Commercial Code. Basically, it's sort of a code, kind of a law, not really a law in some cases. Basically, it's a set of recommendations with regards to state law to make financial transactions between citizens and businesses of different states to be seamless and uniform. So you can conduct transactions across state lines as you would, because it's just easier if everyone's playing by the same damn rules.
Yeah.
But anyway, Section 1-308 establishes the protection of rights in a commercial setting where contract terms that cause unknowing conflict or risk to certain rights. It basically, it's a protection so that if you can't get out of having to perform a contract, but it can be used as a defense or to assist if you end up contracting out some sort of right that you didn't anticipate it contracting out.
Yeah, like if you sign a contract and one of the stipulations of the contract ends up threatening one of your rights, whether workers' rights or otherwise, it gives you an option to fight against the contract for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's basically a way to say, well, I'll contract this, and then suddenly, well, I didn't foresee that this would be putting my rights at risk, contracting out this. And so it's something that can be done. Usually these rights sort of just apply to debt and contract performance law. However, the sovereign citizen thinks that if you put that onto a document, that'll protect that document from becoming a, quote, contract with the illegitimate government that would make them subject to the jurisdiction of this government and binding you to your straw man. And they try this in court as well. For example, Darrell Brooks talks about how he was making a special appearance. What that refers to is him making a special appearance as his own flesh and blood self, appearing in court on behalf of the straw man who was actually in trouble with the law. It was a straw man in trouble, not him, not the flesh and blood person. But the flesh and blood person showed up to court to, I guess, make an appearance to represent the straw man.
That's so fucked. Like such mental gymnastics.
Like I said, it's you're building in. You make fake laws, and then you make fake loopholes to get out of doing your fake laws.
And he's making it sound like I'm here.
Although I have a special place in my heart for all those sovereign citizens that really commit in front of the judge, and like they actually do the whole skit where they're just like, "Hi, I'm here representing the flesh form legal body of a man that I would call blah 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 blah, but it's not me, but I am appearing to represent him." It's like they go through the whole routine. It's like a ballet.
One on the first clip, I loved when the judge just kind of like, he said something stupid and just looks at him and silence and like, what do you think that means?
Yeah.
Tell me about something.
I'd like to state some things. Go ahead. I'd like to state some things for the record. Thank you, Judge. Judge John Hurley, I do accept your oath of office here today for the record, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Does this court take judicial notice of your oath, sir? With all due respect.
Let me see. I take judicial notice of my own oath. Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, today I'm appearing as the agent and settler for David Hall.
Okay. Could you get Mr. Hall for me then, sir? Where is he?
I go by that name, sir. My name sounds exactly like the defendant's, and I'm here to settle that matter today.
So are you and David Hall one and the same person?
I'm not a person, I'm an individual. David Hall is a person. Okay. I am the agent to that name. Are you and David Hall
one and the same individual?
I go by the name David Hall, sir, and I'm here about that matter today.
Okay. So you go by the name David Hall. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. The person who goes by the name of David Hall is standing in front
I'm
of
the
you.
individual.
You're
I am
the
an
individual.
individual, not a person.
You're not a
Yes,
person.
sir. David Hall is a person. I am a private individual. David Hall is a person under color of law, sir.
Okay, where's David Hall then? The person David Hall.
He exists on paper, sir. David Hall is a corporation. This action is under color of law, sir, and I do understand that. I am here in my real capacity as the private individual for that name.
Okay,
And I'm here about that matter.
You're the
and I'm happy to
you're
settle
the
it.
private individual, David Hall.
I'm the settler, sir.
You're the
I'm
settler,
the settler.
David Hall.
I'm the settler to David Hall, sir.
Are you the
I'm
private
happy to-
individual, David Hall?
Yes.
Good. Okay, we got that straight. We agree on that. Okay. Now, David
May I,
Hall,
sir?
David Hall, the private individual. I'm looking at your driving record right now. Multiple failures to pay traffic tickets for the individual, David Hall, not the person. But, sir, what I'm going to do...
Can you clarify,
Go
sir? I'm not sure I understand that, but I'm happy to settle this matter right now if somebody will make presentments. Nobody has made presentment, and I've asked numerous times, and for the record,
When you say presentment, what do you mean by presentment?
presentment of the charging instrument for set-off and settlement, sir. I am the settler.
I just told you what it is. I told you what your I told you what the individual
Presentment.
David Hall did.
Judge?
Yes, sir.
I will require somebody to make me a presentment of the charging instrument on paper so that I may settle that matter. I'm here as settler, and I'm happy to settle this charge
We're not
right now.
We're not settling. Today's not the day to settle matters for these kind of charges, all right? We don't settle them today, all right?
May I say something else for the record, sir?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I am secured party under a UCC filing at the Secretary of State 201-308-717-006.
Okay.
I am secured party to David Hall on the record and through a filing at the Secretary of State, sir. I appear here today as the settler agent, not the person, but the individual. And I don't think I should you understand the difference between a person and an individual.
And you're the individual, but you're not the person. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
I'm going to write that down. Settler. Agent. An individual. But you're not the person. Got it. I think, I remember, I think it was last week you told me this too. And I was a little uncertain, but it's all become very clear now. Now, okay, the settler, the agent, the individual, but he's not the person. Okay, so does the settler, the agent, the individual have any money in the bank?
Yes.
Okay, how much money does the settler, the agent, the individual have in the bank?
I'm not certain at this time, sir.
Okay.
Only that I will give it an affirmative that there is money in a bank account.
Okay. And how long has the settler, the agent, and the individual lived in Broward County?
25 years, sir.
Okay. Does the settler, agent, individual own any property in Broward County other than personal effects?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, does the person own any property or have any money in the bank? If you know.
In conjunction with myself, sir, in conjunction with myself, we both have. Yes, I'm the agent for that account also.
Okay, got it. Okay, so now, here's what we're going to do. The settler, the agent, the individual, and maybe even the person, David Hall, has been charged with DUI. DUI while the settler, the agent, and even the person, David Hall, was out on bond on 2 cases, 1 felony and 1 misdemeanor, for license suspended. So the court believes that...
Other issues that people, sovereign citizens, will create is during traffic stops with law enforcement. They will insist that they have a right to travel and that they are not driving. And while it is true that an American citizen has a right to travel, and the freedom of movement has been judicially recognized as a fundamental constitutional right under U.S. law, travel does not necessarily mean driving. For example, you can walk, you can bike, you can go by horseback if you want. However, if you wish to drive, there's more involved to it.
Yeah.
You have to have insurance and registration and licenses. But the sovereign citizen will insist that they are traveling and not driving, because the term to them, driving, only applies to commerce. Now, this is based on their failed understanding of Title 18, Section 31 of the U.S. Code, defining motor vehicle as meaning every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways and transportation of passengers and property, or property or cargo. Now, why doesn't this apply to a traffic stop? Because Title 18 only applies to criminal court matters involving aircraft and vehicles, not in a traffic stop situation where you need a license and insurance to operate a motor vehicle.
How far do they think they can take that? Like, do they think they can just, like, run down to the army depot and hop in a tank and be like, sorry, traveling.
Not driving, it's not commercial.
I'm allowed to do this, traveling. Like...
Well, and the interesting part is I think a lot of laws actually don't use the phrase driving. I think they use operating a motor vehicle. Like, I think that's what a lot of legislation says, for whatever reason. And so, I mean, even if they say that, I'm not driving, I'm traveling, they're still wrong because the law says operation of a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm just traveling, I'm not driving. What are you doing to that car?
There's a lot of
none of your goddamn business.
Yeah, there's a lot of different videos of these traffic stops that they film and make public and publish on YouTube or whatever. Just look up "sovereign citizen traffic stop,"
I'll
and
find
you can
one
get
of
a
them
whole
to put up
bunch
there.
of them.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe insert a clip or two here. I don't know.
How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing today?
Trooper Kelly with the state police. When I stopped you, you don't have a plate on the back of the car.
Yeah,
What's that?
Yeah, I understand. I'm aware.
You have a license, registration, or anything?
No, I actually don't need that. I'm traveling. I'm not driving. I'm traveling.
Do you have an ID or anything?
No, but I don't need to provide that. I haven't broken any traffic violations.
I can't
or
hear
laws.
you. You mind stepping out?
No, I'd rather not. But
what's that?
I would rather not, to be honest. But
I can't hear anything you're saying.
I'll speak up for you. I would rather not, to be honest.
Okay.
But what I was saying is I'm not driving, I'm traveling. So therefore I don't need a license or registration. You only need that when you're driving on the roadway, transporting goods or people for money.
Well, in New York State, you got to have a registration. You have to have a license.
Well, I understand that for New York State statutes and laws.
Yep.
But that's admiralty law. I don't fall in that. I fall under common law. I'm my own jurisdiction.
Okay.
So, you're right now you're enforcing admiralty law.
Right now, what?
Right now you're enforcing admiralty law, which is color of law. It's the color of law in statutes and regulations.
Okay.
And
you're all step out for me?
No, I'm all right.
All right. Hang tight right here, okay?
So,
what can I help you with?
What's that?
What can I help you with?
So the reason that you're being stopped is obviously you don't have any license plates, you don't have a valid registration or insurance. Having a lack of registration and insurance in the state of New York is a misdemeanor crime.
Well,
and when you commit a crime of a misdemeanor, you're required to give your information. So you have to identify yourself to this trooper.
Yeah.
Okay? Otherwise, you'd be taken into custody and transported for fingerprinting.
Can I explain something to you real quick, though?
Sure.
So, I understand what you're saying and what you're enforcing under, the New York State traffic laws and stuff and admiralty law.
Yep.
And that would be applicable to someone who is driving. But like I stated to the state trooper, I'm not driving. The definition of driving in the legalese language, which is used in the courtrooms and in Black Law's dictionary, the definition of driving is commuting on a public roadway, making commerce, money, transporting goods or people.
Okay.
And under common law, which is the law of the Constitution and the rights that I'm born with as a human living flesh, I'm allowed to travel. But if I were making money, that would be considered driving, and under your state laws, I would have to have a license.
And I understand that argument, and so I'll just respond to that with this. That's an argument that's made in a courtroom.
Well, yeah, there's
that's a defense. Okay.
Yeah.
So what police officers deal with probable cause. So if there's probable cause to believe a crime has been committed, police officers must.
Well, yeah, but I'm telling you, a crime hasn't been committed. Like, I'm telling you definitions, straight up facts.
In the clip of Darrell Brooks, he asks about if this was an admiralty court. And the sovereign citizens, it's basically the other type of law that the sovereign citizens will use. How do you tell if the court you're in is an admiralty court? Well, in sovereign citizen law,
it's the tri-corner hats that give it away.
They say "R" a whole bunch. I don't get it.
The big ship steering wheel on.
There's a lot of ropes involved.
Anyway, what they say is if the flag is as described in the U.S. Flag Code, it's a common law trial. If it has gold fringes around the flag, which symbolize war, it's an admiralty tribunal. In reality, those fringes are just decorative design. It doesn't really mean anything.
It's for aesthetics, right?
In sovereign citizen justice, only people who are victims of physical violence can prosecute in common law trial, and therefore the government cannot prosecute you.
I really want one of these sovereign citizens to be driving outside of a naval base, get arrested, get hauled in, and they're like, "Is this an admiralty court?" And they're like, "Yes, I am the judge advocate general. You are in admiralty court." "Oh, perfect. Well, yeah, you're going to jail."
What do you want? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
You know, a friend of mine and I, the other day, were having a discussion, and it was all about the gold fringe around the American flag that's displayed behind the president whenever he comes on TV. But I do read a lot of educational, informational, philosophical type reading, and I delve into some, not really conspiracy theories, but into the reasons why things are the way they are today, and the meanings of things like the gold fringe on the flag, and why the world is the way it is, and sovereignty and stuff like that. Well, in case you want to know what the gold fringe on the American flag means, the gold fringe simply means one thing. It means martial law. During Abraham Lincoln's presidency, the people on Capitol Hill, they had a big argument between the two sides on an issue, and they couldn't come to an agreement on it. So they decided to leave session sin dia, which is Latin for without a day, meaning they quit. They weren't coming back. So in order for Abraham Lincoln to run the country, he had to put us under martial law so that he could write executive orders. This country was never designed for a president to be able to write executive orders. But they write them all the time these days. And the reason why is because we're under martial law. And we have been since Abraham Lincoln's presidency. They tell us in school that John Wilkes Booth killed the president, but they never mention why. Well, when they left Cindia, the House and the Senate, well, they said they weren't coming back. They had irreconcilable differences. So Abraham Lincoln said, "Hold on, let me mediate and get y'all back. I need y'all." And they said, "No, we have irreconcilable differences. We're not coming back." He finally got them to agree to let him mediate, and they all came to terms, and they decided to come back into session. And before he could lift the martial law that he imposed on the country so that he could run it without them, he was assassinated.
In sovereign citizen justice, only people who are victims of physical violence can prosecute in a common law trial, and therefore the government cannot prosecute you, except unless they have an admiralty tribunal where the government can apply its so-called statutes and alleged laws to a person. Part of the Admiralty trial nonsense is that there needs to be a bar placed between the citizen and the judge to symbolically transform the courtroom into a bridge of a ship.
What?
That's probably a real thing. Like
so
that.
silly.
That is probably one of those, like, if you're in an Admiralty commission or a court martial and you're an Admiralty, in the same way that in Saskatoon here, there's the HMCS Unicorn, which is technically a ship because it is part of the Navy, but we call it a stone frigate because it's a ship made out of a fucking building. But they have a mast, and they don't have walls, they have fucking bulkheads and shit.
No, I'm confident that the whole bar and symbolic bridge thing is just bullshit. I'm fairly confident in that. I'm not a lawyer. If you're a lawyer and you're involved in Admiralty tribunals, send us an email and let us know.
Yeah, that's just a guess. If there's a little barrier, like, in between, like, the defendants and the judge, I'm pretty sure it's to keep defendants from lunging at the judge.
To get out of this Admiralty trial, you must object to being in this Admiralty trial. Otherwise, you agree to losing all your rights.
I declare bankruptcy!
Exactly. So basically, this is not law. That's not how it works. If you are facing legal troubles, do not attempt this without proper legal counsel.
And like, you'll see this in Sovereign Citizen clips. I'm sure I'll find one to put in here, but...
Oh, I've got two actually queued up.
Oh, beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, Demon. Yeah, there's the first one. I think I labeled it Talking Frog. Yeah.
We are going to show you how to enforce your right to a fair hearing and to win your ticket in the process. To make this plan work for you, you must listen and speak it out loud to cement it in your brain and tongue so it becomes crystal clear in your own mind, and you will be prepared for any response. You must be clear enough that you don't have to stop and think, but must always be in control of this plan. The first appearance you make in court is your arraignment, in which the purpose is for the court to present the charges and find out how you intend to react, by standing up for your rights or being fearful and an easy target. During this proceeding, the judge will inform you of the charges against you and attempt to get you to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. A third choice is no contest, which is essentially pleading guilty without admitting guilt. Be careful, however, because as soon as you open your mouth to enter a plea, you have given them formal jurisdiction over you. If you intend to follow our procedure and win, you must not enter a plea. The judge's first question to you should be something to the effect of, do you understand the charges against you? Or it might be, how do you intend to plea? You must say no, you do not understand, or you cannot enter a plea until you get some questions answered. The judge will probably be irritated and try to intimidate you. You must politely state that you need to have some questions answered before you can enter your plea. Tell him that you do not understand the nature and cause of the action against you. Once the judge has agreed to answer your questions, your first question will be, is this going to be a civil action or a criminal action? In the highly unlikely chance that the judge answered your question by saying it is a civil action, your response will be, thank you, Your Honor. Let the record reflect that this is a civil action. Your Honor, since this is a civil action, I make a motion to dismiss for lack of a sworn complaint by an injured party, and no injured party is present. More likely, the judge has stated that this is a criminal action, so you respond, thank you, Your Honor. Let the record of this court then show that this action against me is a criminal action. Now I have another question. Your Honor, the Constitution grants this court two different criminal jurisdictions. One is a criminal jurisdiction under the common law, and the other is a criminal jurisdiction under Admiralty or military tribunal venue from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. In which of these two criminal jurisdictions does the court intend to try me? Don't panic if you don't get the article, section, and clause. You'll have them down by the time you have practiced. But if you are afraid of getting it wrong, it would be wise to have some brief notes with that clause number in it. If the judge gives a specific answer, you will again say, thank you, Your Honor. Let the record of this court then show that this action against me is a criminal action under whichever jurisdiction he replied. However, don't expect an easy answer to that question, as you have just exposed the court's fraud. The truth is that they are acting under a military tribunal of which they have no right to use with you.
We're looking at like a frog
It's a tree frog.
on like a wooden door in a courtroom.
Teaching sovereign citizen
Law.
legal ninja shit.
From sovereignfilings.com.
And it's very bad animation.
And then I've got one...
Making a cute little tree frog do like propaganda. That should come with a financial penalty.
At his crazy stoned red eyes.
And his AI voice.
And the way they wrote the script, you can see them pandering to the sovereign citizen. Like, the judge may be intimidated by your confidence, but keep on going. Like,
And then, I have one more video. If you could cue that up and start it at 6 minutes, 51 seconds.
This deception goes even deeper when it comes to the courts that we attend. When showing up to court, you will notice that there are seats for witnesses behind a wooden fence or barrier. The defendant must cross through the entrance to the other side of the barrier where the plaintiff and judge sit. This act symbolizes the boarding of a ship. At this time, business can be conducted in maritime admiralty law. The judge, acting as captain or banker, is responsible for settling the balance between the two sides. This is why there is always a monetary value involved in any court case. The captain is simply dealing with banking and merchant disputes. Once the balance is paid, the case is closed. To turn the court case away from admiralty law where your rights are not protected, you must avoid agreeing to represent the artificial person. This is done by stating that you are the natural person. You don't have a first or last name because those imply corporate title. In a court case, you may state that the court takes judicial notice of your honor's oath of office. Every judge must take an oath of office to practice law, yet you must make it clear to the court and the jury that the judge is acting as judge and not banker. Remember that you are a natural human being of the earth. You are not governed by anything but your own consciousness. Laws are created within a society. The society that created the laws we see being enforced today is called the Law Society. Yet the most beautiful part of this entire deception is the fact that we are not part of the Law Society, so their laws do not apply to us.
Judges, lawyers, and law enforcement officers, they're all part of a society. Within that society, they've created their own language that's deceptively similar to English. They have these little things called statutes, acts, and regulations that seem like laws, but they really only apply to those within their society. So that basically means all the traffic violations, minimum age requirements, and everything except for damage to another person or their property doesn't really apply to the natural person.
Laws only apply to those within the Law Society. The game being played is an illusion. You can simply choose
That's
to open your
probably
eyes
enough
and
of that. Yeah, there's all this like alternative history and alternative interpretations of his basically it takes place in a lot of places around the world actually. So like in Germany you have the Reichsbürger movement, which one of their typical claims is that the German Reich continues to exist in its pre-World War II borders, and that the 1919 Weimar Constitution, or an earlier constitution if you wish, remains in effect.
Say that to a Polish guy's face, I dare you. Just do it.
The first and second Reichsbürgers are okay, but the third Reichsbürger's burned.
Walk into Paris, find the biggest guy you can see, and say, the Third Reich is still happening, I own your city. Just see what happens.
The first and second Reichs are still happening.
Oh.
Pre-World War II.
Oh.
It wouldn't be quite so insane as to just be like, oh no, Nazis are in charge, and that's why you can't arrest me.
No. It's pre-World War II, so so I guess similarly to how like the U.S. sovereign citizens don't understand or misrepresenting law and history, same goes for these folks in Germany. In Canada, the legal system is faced with OPCALs, which stands for Organized Pseudo-Legal Commercial Argument Litigants. In 2012, there was a case of Meads versus Meads. Basically, it was just a spousal child support case. However, the husband, Dennis Meads, proclaimed that as a child of God, he was not subject to the rule of law and therefore not obligated to provide further support payments. Now, Justice Rook basically slapped down all this nonsense with arguments and concepts that were adopted by these OPCALs. And basically it was to, quote, set the record straight for Canadian courts on the matter of any sort of arguments that they make. So this was certainly no small feat, because the Meads versus Meads decision was 736 paragraphs long, basically tearing apart every one of these sovereign citizen nonsense arguments. And that way any future court just has to refer back to Meads versus Meads as to why these arguments don't hold any weight, hold no water.
They put the defeat like cheat code into the law.
Yeah. It's now precedent saying, well, no, your argument doesn't make any sense. It's not actual. I want to read the whole decision. I think I might do an episode of it if people like my boring law episodes. Get Judge Rook to see if they're available.
Bribe them with liquor.
I just want to point out, there's a CTV article from 2013 where it starts, he introduces himself as Brian Arthur of the Alexander family, and before he'll answer any questions, he asks the reporter to declare that she is not a government employee. It's this Freeman on the land that they interviewed in 2013. It's just insane.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can kind of understand why the sovereign citizen might be appealing if you're an individual in trouble with money, in trouble with taxes, in trouble with the law or the courts or whatever. You know, like many systems, particularly around law and government, leave people, you know, often feeling powerless and alienated. You know, if you don't have money to hire a lawyer, you may end up having to represent yourself anyway. And it's, it's just much more comfortable, I would say, to think that you know all these loopholes, you know, this like legal karate to get out of it, despite everyone else who tried it before you failing, and so, but it's like, instead of seeing like the system stacked against them, you're thinking, and saying, well, system's against us. We need to redo the system. We need to change the laws, to provide, good material conditions. You just pretend that, instead of it being one-sided, that you are the savvy actor within the system.
Yeah.
Everyone else is wrong. So you pepper this like savvy actor thing within the system mentality with, anti-Semitic views and racism, and you add like this myth of the rugged individual and all this other right-wing nonsense that these people hold on to. You fail to do any sort of lack of class or power analysis. And basically they just try to reconcile their beliefs that, that the system is stacked against you, but you couldn't possibly be against you, and it's got to be, it can't be against you. You're the participant in the system. You're the all-knowing participant in the system. And basically it's just this weird mix of them trying to like buck the system but still operate within it,
Yeah, I mean, like it seems like they follow it for the same reasons that a lot of people follow different conspiracies. They are looking for a sense of control, that they have things figured out and they have the tools it takes to survive. And their version of that is all this legal kung fu. And like, it's funny, they're not all that much different than, the desperate farmers that the movement kind of originated from. They're kind of in a crisis, and they're presented with this propaganda that says that it's going to give them the answer to get out of their legal troubles, and it doesn't.
Well, exactly. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, the system is stacked against you, but at the same time, it's like, well, because it's designed that way and you are but a small individual and you need that collective action, like net solidarity that was preached by the left-wing organizers during the farm crisis, as opposed to, this rugged individualism where, no, I'm going to stand up to the system as one single sovereign citizen with this like made up legal mumbo jumbo and gibberish. But
there's such a better option other than like, oh, the amount of bullshit that we have is really good and we can bullshit the bullshit. And it's like, or you can just realize that maybe the government shouldn't have a monopoly on power, and that, oh no, now you have to be an anarchist instead of a
it's like,
judge.
it just would have been easier if you just took the anarchist pill and became an anarchist, you know?
It's almost like they're 80% of the way there. It's like, okay, you're anti-corporation, okay, you're
You realize
anti-authoritarian.
you're being pushed down by the system, you know, maybe do some of that power analysis and be like, maybe it's the wealthy fuckers at the top that are causing all this trouble, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, with all of that, I am Richard Bigley for Occultae.
Before we go out, can we watch a couple minutes of The Living Man?
Sure.
He's my favorite.
Movie night.
Well, you were charged on the 31st of August of 2013 with obstructing a police officer in violation of 457302. You were also charged on the same date with resisting arrest in violation of 457301 of the Montana Code.
Those men were charged by me right back by staging an overthrow of the Constitution of 1789, an overthrow of the Bill of Rights, an overthrow of my rights to forage for food as a natural living person who was in hunger. I was searching for something to put in my stomach, as I am recognized to be allowed to do by universal law, has nothing to do with your corporate fiction. They violated everything, and furthermore, for your knowledge, they violated Judge Holly Brown's Title 26 United States Code ruling, which I went before her and prevailed on 21st March 2011. DPO 9-58A is the case number wherein she evidenced that I am not a taxpayer because I am not a federal citizen. Federal law trumps state law at every turn. I have 9 judge rulings to that end, and that trumps state law. I am not registered crap. I am the living man, and I have the right to forage for food when I'm hungry.
All right. But you're here on different charges.
This
is not
what
Holly
stands.
Brown's courtroom.
Ma'am, you can argue this all day long. You're operating on a corporate fiction.
I'm telling you, you're here on some charges which were filed in 3 courts.
I do not
Number
understand
one.
those charges.
Number one, you keep interrupting me, and I'm going to charge you with contempt, and you'll go to jail.
Contempt of court is spelled C-O-double-N. I know about conning. That's navigation.
Sir,
That's the storm.
I said, be
Don't
quiet
touch me.
until I get
Don't
through
touch
reading
me.
this
You
to
ain't a
you.
god. Don't
Officer?
you touch me. I am the living man protected by universal law.
You keep
stand
talking,
down.
and you're going to be charged with contempt, and you're going to go to jail.
You have already contempted this place.
No, I told
by
you
the
I
fraud
would if
you're
you
trying
didn't
to
quit
get done
talking.
here. These are the living witnesses to what you're trying to do.
Very
You
good.
are trying to create a fictitious fraudulent action. You are trying to bilk the Federal Reserve by
Sir?
securitizing in all caps commercialized name
Sir?
and
Would you
notifying
remove
them
him from the
that
courtroom?
they are standing in debt now. If you touch me,
There's a
you
couple
will
dozen
violate
clips of him
natural
online.
law.
He's been to
Do
court
not come near me.
Kind of love him.
I am
Then
protected
shush.
by the land.
Shush.
Don't tell me to shut up. I am the living natural man, and my voice will be heard. That is the Jolly Roger. That thing you call the American flag with the gold fringe around it is the Jolly Roger, and you are acting as one of its privateers.
Okay, you're here on the charge of arrest.
I'm here by
arrest.
special visitation.
Right.
Oh my God!
And
Just
I've
trying to
never let you
contempt
get
order.
away with
Obstructing
this,
a
but
police
I'm here.
officer. To each charge could be up to a $500 fine, up to 6 months in jail.
I do not understand any charges. I only understand universal law and the right to live.
Well, you
To
pled
live at
not
peace
guilty.
and to live as I need to.
You pled not guilty in this
I
court.
never plead. Animals plead. Sound like bah, oink oink.
I have a paper with your signature on it, sir.
It says prime evidence standing right through it. You bring forward all natural forms of evidence that I'm not prime evidence. I am the living soil. The dirt, the water, and the air has its own voice, does it not? It all supports
Sir?
forms of life, does it not? I am a part of that life. I am not your corporate.
Anyways, that goes on for 15 minutes.
You got it, Uncle Boyfriend.
Yeah, that's the living man. That's my favorite sovereign citizen. But he both makes me happy and then sad because I realize that he's probably caused a lot of trouble for himself and his loved ones.
Yeah.
Had we considered the possibility, and I mean this in all honesty, that he has schizophrenia?
Oh, there's definitely that possibility. It could be attributed to some sort of like a mental illness, but like it could just as easily be indoctrination propaganda.
I could see Arthur's dad doing this shit. Like Arthur's dad is the kind of guy that's you don't have to bury me in their cremated ways. Just throw me in the coulee and let the coyotes eat me. It's like,
Yeah.
well, like They can't legally do that. They have to like bury or cremate you. No, don't worry about the laws. They're never gonna find me. They're gonna eat my coyotes. It's like, okay, you're the living man on the land. Like, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope all people, both living men, legal entities, and otherwise, have a wonderful day. I'll hand it back to Richard.
All right. Well, for Occultae Veritatis, I am Richard Bigley.
Sage Berry.
Ood Gallifrey.
Remember, if you punch them and they try to sue you, they're not real sovereign citizens. I'm the soundboard demon.
Good night.
Love you, bye.
Legal advice, don't stab.
It's 4 o'clock, guys. It's not night.
Yeah.